So the discourse when it comes to women's standards is complicated at best, right? Because we ultimately always hear two things at the same time. Women being told to raise their standards, and then women being told that they're asking for too much, or that women are delusional, their list is unrealistic. Any TikTok video, YouTube video, or Reddit thread can definitely confirm this. And somewhere in the middle of that noise, I think a lot of people get confused about what they even want. Good morning, and happy Friday. It has been a week, guys. Welcome back to the Sage Sorority. I'm your host, Chantel. How are we all doing? Like I said, it has been a week, so the pod was delayed by one day. I know. But it's actually so fitting that it's going to go live Friday, February 13th, because last year, February 13th, I uploaded episode number 1, the reset for the Sage Sorority Podcast. And I know I talked about it last week, but I just want to reiterate how proud I am of myself. It was a personal goal to upload one episode every week, no matter what, create a body of work that I'm proud of, and put myself out there on the internet, in social media, in content creation in a new way. For those of you that know, I originally had an idea to do a podcast years ago when I still lived in Toronto. So when I say that the idea came and went and then came and there was a lot of resistance to it, I really mean that. It's so nice to be on the other side of things a year later with a pod that I'm proud of, a pod that I've had personal growth on. I've had a lot of positive feedback and something that I've built for myself in a new way. I think that when you're a content creator, people just assume that once you put yourself out there once, it'll always come easy, it'll always come natural, and it's really just water off your back. But it's actually not true. I think anytime you make the slightest change in things, you still feel like a beginner. You know, if you always upload pictures and then you want to start creating video content, there's a shift in that. If you always create silent videos and now you're doing face to camera, there's resistance in that. If you created beauty content and now you want to start showing your outfits, there's hesitation in that. You know, are people going to receive it? Do people care? Is this going to do well? I'm nervous, et cetera, et cetera. We all have limiting beliefs and, you know, new levels, new devils. So I really want to put that message out there for anyone who is considering any type of move, even though it may seem lateral and it may seem like this should come easy and it should be nothing to you. That resistance and that hesitation and that fear of being perceived and how you're going to be received is completely normal. And it doesn't have to be just in a social media context. That could be at work, anything, right? Your personal life, the gym, whatever. Going out of what has been deemed comfortable or regular for you, your own box, is going to feel nervous. It's going to feel fearful. And that's just our brain's way of protecting us, right? Perceiving the threat. And as cheesy as that quote may be, feel the fear and do it anyway, it is very true. You know, I didn't not become nervous and then I decided to do the podcast. I just got sick of my own story. It's something that I felt compelled to do. It's something that I knew I wanted to do. And it's something that I felt was for me. I had a lot to say. It's something that I'm essentially doing in my regular life all the time. And I was way overdue for hitting play. So thank you to everyone who has listened once, who has listened to all 52 episodes, for every download, share, mention, comment, like, everything. I truly appreciate it from my heart to yours. And speaking of year 2, the Sage Sorority is officially going offline. So I'm hosting our very first event called The Gathering, Wine, Women, and Conversation. It is happening Thursday, March 5th at 6 p.m. in central London. It's going to be from 6 to 9, happy hour style. It's going to be intimate, good wine, great conversation, and a room full of like-minded women having the conversations that we want to be having. No awkward networking energy, just real, authentic connection between real women. A few tickets have already sold. The link will be in the show notes. I would genuinely love to see you there if you're local. Come through. It's going to be a good time. I'm super, super thrilled and nervous, but ultimately looking forward to it. So anyways, that was a very long intro. As you can tell by today's title, we're talking about high standards, delusional, self-sabotage, being unrealistic, all of the things. So let's get into today's episode. So the discourse when it comes to women's standards is complicated at best, right? Because we ultimately always hear two things at the same time. Women being told to raise their standards, and then women being told that they're asking for too much. Any TikTok video, YouTube video, or Reddit thread can definitely confirm this. Or that women are delusional, their list is unrealistic. And somewhere in the middle of that noise, I think a lot of people get confused about what they even want, right? Before I even get into it, I think it's highly, highly, highly important that if you are a woman who's dating, I think you should write down your non-negotiables. Like, what are things that are really, really true to you that you know you don't want to budge on? See how long the list is, look at them. Do they feel real for you? Have you had that reflected back to you in your dating life? I think that's really important. And the reason why I think it's so important is because if you are not careful, you will let the world make that decision for you. And it's not a good one. Maybe a non-negotiable for you is that you don't care about getting married. Like, maybe a non-negotiable for you is that you absolutely want to get married. Maybe a non-negotiable for you is that you're unsure about having children, so you have to be with someone who's unsure as well. It's very important that you know who you are before the world tells you. I think with social media, especially short form video, because it's so frequent and it's so loud, you really have to know what it is that you want to your true self. When the cameras are off and you're all alone, what is it that you really want? Start from there. Because I think that in the middle of all that noise, a lot of women get confused about what they actually want. And look, if you're listening to this and you're in your 30s or your 40s, ultimately you're not dating for vibes anymore, right? You might be. Chances are you're not dating for vibes at the moment. And I'm not against that either. I ultimately think every date, your goal, especially the first to fifth date, your goal should be to have a good time, to get to know someone in a light and effortless way. You can be smart, but your goal should be to have fun. But anyways, situationships are probably not what you're looking for. Ultimately, you're dating for alignment, for lifestyle. You guys know how I feel about this. For someone who actually has the capacity, we talked about this in episode 41, I think, for what you're building. And that's not being picky or delusional. That's just being a mature adult and dating for the phase of life that you're in. Like I said, we've talked before about the relationship trifecta: attraction, compatibility, and capacity. And this conversation sits inside of that framework, because what I've noticed is that sometimes what we call high standards is actually just us trying to avoid getting hurt again, but it can also be someone projecting. And sometimes what we think maybe is discernment is really just our own fear dressed up as logic and armor to try and protect us. So I want to dive into that a little bit today, not to tell you to lower your bar, absolutely not, but to help us all get to an honest place about when we're protecting our peace and when we're actually just protecting our ego. You know what I mean? Firstly, let's start with what good standards actually do. And there's a great quote: high standards protect you from low experiences. I will say that's 98% of the time very true, because low experiences can sneak in there. You know, it's like a leaky roof, but they ultimately serve a purpose. Standards are supposed to protect you, your nervous system, your time, your heart, your body, your long-term vision, your short-term vision. They are the boundaries that you set before someone enters your life. This is key. Your standards don't flip-flop with every guy that you meet. Your standards are fixed, ladies. They are fixed. If you want consistency, if you want emotional steadiness, if you want someone whose life actually works with yours, a real yin to yang, if you want someone who shows up without being chased, without being reminded, without being coddled, without being managed, it's not delusional. That's you being mature and dating for the phase of life that you're in. That's you knowing, as one functional adult to another, what you want your partnership to look like. And the thing is that research backs all of this up. So there's a sociologist called Eli Finkel, and he wrote about this in his book called The All or Nothing Marriage. And he talks about how modern relationships carry far more weight than they used to. And we know this, right? If you know anything about the history of marriage, you know that marriages carry a lot more weight now, and we have far higher expectations on our partners now than ever before in history. We're not just looking for someone to share the bills with or to share property with or to take their last name or to raise kids with. We expect emotional fulfillment, intellectual partnership, hot sex, physical chemistry. They have to be our best friend, shared ambition, all wrapped up in one person. The job description has expanded and keeps expanding. So, of course, our standards may feel incredibly heavier. The role is much bigger. The shoes are larger to fill. So, with all that said, I still don't believe that women's standards are too high. I really don't. We can talk about how I think in a lot of ways women are conditioned to accept less from men so that men essentially don't have to do anything, because that saying the bar is in hell is very, very, very real. And I think collectively, women need to raise their standards 10x. If you think your standards are high, 10x them. Honestly, I really do believe that. But I say that with the caveat of being able to say no to something that you know is unfulfilling. And I think that's where a lot of women lose. I also think in the same breath, we're clear on what's not working. A lot of us have dated the bare minimum. Maybe some of us have even married the bare minimum, had children with the bare minimum. We've compromised ourselves literally into exhaustion. That's the thing. You twist and turn and bend and crease yourself into the cool girl, the chill girl, the married girl, and then you're like, this fucking sucks. And now what? And this is where things can get a little tricky, because there's a difference between protecting your peace and trying to control outcomes, right? And I do think that sometimes we blur the line without realizing it. And here are a few examples. Expecting someone to anticipate your needs without you ever expressing them, that's a no. Dismissing someone after one small misstep because you've already decided that it's a pattern, that's a no. Wanting full certainty by week 2 or date 2 or even the first month, depending on how you guys are dating and what your relationship looks like, that's a no. Expecting someone to show up fully healed, fully formed, fully everything, the perfect package, when you yourself, my sweet angel baby, are very much a work in progress. Those are not standards. That is self-protection disguised as discernment. That is your fear and your ego wrapped up in a package that makes you feel like you're protecting yourself when you're not. And look, none of us are perfect, and we know that logically, even though we might not always act like that. And I always say the podcast, the books, the therapy, that is the theory. It is the work. It is the classroom. But relationships and real life are the test. And part of that growth for you is taking the work with you and applying it in your everyday life, in your relationships. You have to get messy. You have to get dirty. The price of love is the risk. You cannot have one without the other. The book Attached by Amir Levine talks a lot about what we call standards can actually be referenced to our attachment style playing out. And whether or not you agree with attachment styles, it is something to just take note of. Anxious attachment can make you super hyper aware of every inconsistency, every delayed text, every shift in energy. And I think we ebb and flow, right? With our relationship styles, age, life stages, even throughout the same relationship. Avoidant attachment can make you cut people off very early before they even have a chance to disappoint you, or you can be very harsh in your judgment as well. And both of those things can make you feel like you quote unquote have high standards, but really it's just your fear running the show. Like, we can't be out here acting like procalculator.com. I think it's procalculator.co.uk, but if you guys have ever seen it, it is insane. You're inputting data, you're calculating ROI, deciding someone's entire worth based on very limited information. And I get it, because dating in 2026 can be very exhausting. The apps are a mess. They feel like a part-time job. And every TikTok video you see that's on dating contradicts each other. But you cannot algorithm your way to love, nor can an algorithm screen your heart. And you can't swipe your way to safety. You have to go through the mud. Sometimes you need time because patterns reveal themselves, character shows up in small moments and not in interview questions. Now, you guys know how I feel about asking the right questions on a date, because I do think it's really important. Listen, I know that sometimes it can seem like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth, but ultimately, on one hand, time is the only way to really know someone. Time and circumstances, right? That's it. However, how you spend that time can also help you. Asking questions, being interested, And this is not a woman or man thing. It should be an everyone thing. You need to know the person that you're breaking bread with, just like you would your friends. So no, it doesn't mean you go into every date like an interview, but it does mean that when you are making mindless chit chat about your day and your coffee order, you can throw in things that are a lot more thoughtful and be a little bit more curious about the person that you're trying to get to know. The next part is where I really need you to sit with me for a second, because these are the type of questions that really change the game. Are you actually available for what you're asking for? Be real with yourself. Because a little bit of what I've seen, and I've even seen it in my own life too, is that you say you want emotional depth, but you shut down when conversations get a little bit too real. You say you want ambition, but then you resent the time and sacrifice that it may take and the time and sacrifice that that person might not have for you. You say you want softness, but you're only attracted to intensity and unavailability. You say you want consistency, but you test people instead of communicating your needs and wants and desires clearly. Standards without intense self-awareness easily turns into rigidity. And rigidity is extremely unattractive, and it doesn't build intimacy. All you have is walls. This is something I've seen in my real life by women older than me and women my age. It is a very real thing. A woman can turn very rigid very quickly if you do not check yourself. I talked about this a little bit in the capacity episode. You can't ask for something you're not willing to cultivate in yourself, or at least try. We all have growing to do. That's never going to change. That's the human condition. But you do have to be honest about where you are, not just where you want him to be. So I have a few questions that I want you to ask yourself when you are evaluating someone that you've met, or maybe you can even do this for someone that you have met in the past, or honestly evaluating your own patterns. Do this in your journaling and let me know how it goes. 1, is this about safety or ego? Am I protecting my peace or am I protecting my pride? Maybe it's a little bit of both, depending on the person, depending on the situation. 2, am I reacting to something current or something old? Is this person actually showing me a red flag? Or does this just remind me of someone who hurt me before? I think a really good indication with this is like, what are you reacting to? Are you reacting to what's happening in front of you? Or are you reacting to what you're making it mean in your head, or the story that you're telling yourself? 3, have I communicated this clearly, or am I expecting them to just know? I think all women are guilty of this at one point or another, me included. It's like, of course you should just know, you know? But sometimes, no, I'm not communicating this clearly. Like, yes, should you know to say thank you after I hand you something? Of course. But in the same breath, I also know that, and one thing I've told my friends before is like, but he's never met you before. He's never liked you before. He's never loved you before. So you are going to be different, and you're going to have your own expectations and your own standards that he has never encountered before, because he's never encountered who? That's right, you. So be mindful. Number 4, am I evaluating behavior over time, or am I making a snap judgment based on one moment? This is really important because people have patterns, both good and bad. And do you want to be judged at the stake for one moment, or would you want someone emotionally mature enough to have a gradual approach to assessing you? You have to figure out if you're willing to do the same. And number 5, if this person never changed, could I live with who they are right now? This is the one. This is the alpha and the omega of everything. Whoever you're with, whoever that person is, that is who they are. That is who they are showing up to be. You need to take them as they are, not the fantasy in your head, not the man that you hope he can be, not the man that you think he will be. If nothing ever changed, his personality, his hair, his weight, his money, his generosity, his cooking habits, his cleaning habits, whatever it is on a micro level or a macro level, nothing changed. If his worst habits and his good ones, could you live and build a life with him with who he is right now? That is a very important question. Because if you're staying hoping they will grow into someone different, You are dating the man in your head, not the one in real life. So what I want to leave you with, most importantly, is that your standards are your own, okay? What looks like high standards to me may look like low standards to someone else, but ultimately they are my own and they are your own. When they come from the heart and they come from and you ask and you go inward for these answers and not outward, you know that they're real. Stay steadfast in your decision and your decision making. But with high standards comes appropriate rewards, yes. But on the flip side of that, usually means less action. And I need you to be okay with that because that is the trade-off. A wider net will bring in more stuff. So you have to figure out what it is that you want. Because ultimately, and I'm speaking to the women that are looking for someone serious, that are looking for their future partner, that are looking for or hoping to meet their future husband, all you need is one. Don't ever forget that. This is a world of billions of people. All you're looking for is one. Regardless of how you deem your standards, just remember that you are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to have standards that protect your present and your future. You are allowed to have standards that protect your children, but make sure what you're protecting is your peace and your love and your essence and your joy, not your fear. Yes, attraction matters. Compatibility matters. Capacity matters. And so does radical honesty with yourself. That is where your real power is and always will be, is in your clarity, in your self-awareness, in your self-respect, in choosing with your heart and your eyes and ears wide open. I really hope that that lands for someone today and gives you exactly what you need right before Valentine's Day weekend, right before Galentine's, and in the month of love. I know I didn't really harp on it too much, but I wanted to do something in the dating relationship sphere to send you off this weekend right. I know it can be a lot and it can feel very heavy if you're not where you want to be romantically. You're not alone. Many women have been there. I've been there. It's just a day. But when you are out there thinking about your future, about your relational future, I want you to hold strong and know why you're holding strong and keep that with you. Anyways, that is it for me today. I hope that you guys like this episode. I hope that you guys have an amazing weekend too. I'm going to dinner on Saturday. And then because I've decided that I'm Chinese now, I'm also going to celebrate Chinese New Year next week. And I'm very excited. I have my red dress. I wrote my checklist of all the things that I'm not going to do and the things that I am going to do beforehand. Year of the Horse. I think we're all ready. I feel like spring has kind of already started in London because I'm getting seasonal allergies. So for me, spring has started, which is insane because it's only February. I think we're all ready for a little bit of a refresh. It has been raining nonstop in London. Hopefully the weather is better wherever you are. Thank you so much. Please leave a review if you haven't already. Tag me on Instagram, guys. It really helps for the show to grow and spread the love. Leave a comment on Spotify if you love this episode. You can follow me and the show on all platforms. Everything is in the show notes as well, including our event. Get your tickets. They will sell out. And I can't wait to see you IRL March 5th. I can't believe I'm even saying that. I love you guys so much. I will talk to you next Thursday. Have an amazing week and an amazing weekend. Bye.